Hey, everybody. Chandler Bolt here, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm really excited to have you here. If you could do me a couple things right off the bat and let me know, A, that you can hear me, and then B, that you can see me. So you should see me waving my hands right now. That'd be very helpful, as well as if you then let me know where you're tuning in from. So where in the world you are located. I got my handy dandy iPad here. I'm going to be checking the chat, and we're going to get kicked off in just about 60 seconds or so. Once we get people in the door, and once I know that everybody can hear me and can see me. So it looks like we got Matt from Philly, Christy, Southern California, Corona, California, Pennsylvania. We got Cheryl, Linford, Toledo, Ohio, New York. Let's see, we got Dan, what's up? Karen, Martin, Prince George, BC, Canada. Another Ohio person in Bailey. We got the UK. We got Denver, Tulsa, Oklahoma. We got Shannon. Let's see. We got West Africa. L from West Africa. Another person from London. We got John from Pennsylvania. Sweet. So it looks like, South Dakota. Heck yeah. We got Berlin. Awesome. So it looks like we got a bunch of people kind of filing in here. I'm super excited for this. I hope that you are too. We're going to have a lot of fun, and I'm going to switch over to my slides here in just 1 second. So there'll probably be a little delay. You'll probably lose me for just 1 second, and then we'll go ahead and dive in and get started. So give me just 1 sec, and I'm going to switch over now. And just let me know in the chat that you can still hear me and that you can now see my screen. That'd be super helpful. Looks like we got Rashad from Charlotte. That's near my old stomping grounds in South Carolina. We've got Doc from Alabama, Donna from Aspen, Colorado, John from Edinburgh, Scotland. Awesome. So it sounds like people can still hear me, and now you can see my screen. That's fantastic. What you should be able to see right now is the title slide for this presentation, which, as you know, obviously you probably saw when signing up for this presentation. This is going to be about how to write and launch your book to $10,000 in 90 days. It's really the busy person's guide. It's not only getting your book done in 30 minutes per day, but launching it successfully. Now, $10,000. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. Those results are not typical, but I'm going to show you how, if you follow this, you can achieve those results, right? So I'm not going to just sit here and tell you this is like some overnight success formula. In fact, if people tell you that, you should probably run, right? Because that doesn't exist. But I am going to show you how to shortcut this as much as possible and take this thing to the finish line. All right. So first things first, I need your full undivided attention. And let's see, I see Joshua Kelly here. Josh, I think you just enrolled in the fiction course. If I remember correctly, that's awesome. You could probably hop off this and dive into that. You'll find that pretty helpful. But anyway, so a couple things right off the bat. I need your full and undivided attention. So I need you to go ahead and close out all applications, turn your phone on Do Not Disturb, close off Facebook, do whatever you need to do so that I have your undivided attention. I'm going to be moving really fast here. I want to make sure that number one, you participate, and number two, that you pay attention, okay? So also go and grab a pen and paper or something to take notes. I talk very fast, and I'm going to cover as much as possible in this presentation to make sure that this is as helpful as possible for you. So you guys are already doing well on the second thing, which is participating. So let's keep that up. And I want to keep the dialogue going back and forth in the chat today on this webinar. Now, I'll be really brief here because I think, most of us kind of know each other. But if you've never heard of me, my name's Chandler Bolt. I'm originally from a small town that you've probably never heard of called Walhalla, South Carolina. I currently live in San Francisco. I'm the author of 6 best-selling books. I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars off of my books and taught thousands of people to write and publish their first book through my program in my company, Self-Publishing School. So I've grown this to over $5 million in 2.5 years. And I've done all this despite being a C- English student, right? So I say this to say, number one, I'm qualified to teach what I'm about to teach. I've done all this stuff myself. And also the last part, if I can do it, you can do it, right? Now, I'd be a bad brother if I didn't mention this. It's kind of a fun fact. My brother plays in the rock and roll band Need to Breathe. This is him on the left-hand side here with the long hair. So if we have any Need to Breathe fans in the house. Also, this is just picture my family so you guys kind of know where I come from. My mom and dad met at a factory, working at a factory on the night shift in South Carolina. And they kind of bootstrapped their way to provide a much better life for me and my brother. So this is us here at Red Rocks. Which we were just there, a couple weeks ago. So if we have any people from Denver or Red Rocks in the house. I want to start with a quick story. Matt says, Need to Breathe, woohoo. Awesome. So has anyone ever heard of Robert Kiyosaki, or maybe you've read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Now, I remember reading this book way back in high school, and I had two very distinct epiphanies when I read this book. Now in this book, Robert talks about this concept called passive income. So number one, the first epiphany that I had was I wanted to control my own destiny, and I wanted to start my own business. And then number two, I had an epiphany that I wanted to earn this thing called passive income. Now, he lays out a pretty simple concept in the book, which is that passive income equals real estate, right? The only way to earn passive income is to go into real estate. Well, there was a big problem there, is that I was young and I didn't have $40,000 to buy a house to invest in real estate, right? To put down money to get into that game. So I said, you know what, maybe just this passive income thing isn't for me. So I went off and I did what a lot of people do. I went to college, right? I went to college to learn how to run a business. But I found out very quickly that I was learning how to run a business from professors who had never ran a business. And that didn't really make too much sense to me. So I decided to drop out. Now, right before I dropped out of school, I studied abroad. This is in Austria. So this is a picture of me snowboarding. A huge fan of snowboarding. Love to do that. I don't know if we have any snowboarders or skiers in the house. But I was snowboarding, and about this time, just by chance, I decided to write and publish my first book. Now, that book's called The Productive Person. Now, I launched this book about the time that I was dropping out of school, and it ended up doing way better than I had ever thought possible. I mean, much beyond $10,000 with this book. Now, I remember being on the ski lift, so to the right-hand side here, and I was on this exact ski lift, and I was talking to a friend, and he said, Chandler, I've heard that this book is doing well, but I also heard that books don't make any money, right? So is your book actually making any money? And I thought for a second. I said, well, you know what? Actually, while you and I were snowboarding all day yesterday, the book made over $400. And it was as if, as I said that, as those words came out of my mouth, right, that I realized what had happened. This is that passive income thing, right? I just made money while I was living the dream, while I was snowboarding, having fun with my friends, right? The book made $400, and that book was bought all around the world during that time from people that I didn't even know. So it was that light bulb moment where, oh my gosh, this is that passive income thing. So to answer his question, to answer his question, did it make any money? In month one, it brought in $6,639. Month two, $4,400. Month three, $3,100. Month four, $2,500. Month five, $3,400. And the book kept bringing in passive income month after month after month, right? But not only that, but because of my book, I started getting interviewed for top podcasts, got featured on the Huffington Post. I got offered a 6 to 7 figure digital publishing deal, built a 4,000 person email list, started a business on the back end. And the big one for me, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but when you're starting to do something on the side, like say write a book or start a business, a lot of times you end up failing. Like I just was failing. And when that happens, your confidence can take a huge blow. You know, I mean, your family, your friends, your colleagues, they all are looking at you and they're what are you doing over here? You know, when are you going to stop this hobby? Right? But it's not a hobby. You know that it's your passion. You know that it's your ticket out of the job that you hate or out of, into a better life for both you, your family. Right? And so for me, when I finally had a successful book launch, that represented confidence. That gave me confidence in what I was doing. And it gave me confidence that I actually could succeed at bigger and better things. So what I discovered in this process is that a book is the best passive income source. A book is the best passive income source. Now, why a book? A couple reasons, and I'll be brief here. There's very low startup costs. So in terms of starting a business or growing a business, a lot of times you have to put a bunch of money in. High margin, especially for digital books. You get to keep almost all of the revenue from those books. You're able to tap into an existing ecosystem. So there's hundreds of millions of buyers on Amazon. And the good news is unlike the old days, you can go directly to those buyers. And that's because of the last reason here. And that's that recent changes in the publishing industry have made it easier than ever to publish a book. So think about how you used to buy a book. You decide you want a book. You drive down to Barnes & Noble or the local bookstore, however long that takes. You search through the store. You hope that they have your book. You hope that you're able to find it in that massive store. You get the book, you buy it, and you come home, right? I mean, that took probably an hour at least. But now, in less than 60 seconds, I could buy a book, right? And so can 100 million other people. It's way more than that now. So can all of these buyers. They can go directly to you through Amazon. So there's no longer this need for a publisher. I like to say that a book is the key that opens the door to Narnia, right? When you publish a book, when you become an author, it opens up this world. Has anyone seen Chronicles of Narnia? Or maybe you've read the book or seen the movie, right? So if you have, you know that when they open this door, there's this whole world that exists here that they previously did not know existed, right? But then when they open this cupboard or this chest, they found this world. That's exactly the same experience I had when I became an author, right? It looks like a few people have seen, says John and Elle, and Cheryl says many times. Awesome. So I want to give you a couple quick examples of kind of what this can look like. So this is my buddy Hal Elrod. He wrote a book called The Miracle Morning. Life-changing book for me. Highly recommend it. This book makes over $25,000 a month. This is Otakar Kletke. She was working 2 jobs to make ends meet, and her entire income was earned actively. But she was able to double her income through passive income from her books. So yes, books actually do make money, right? And now she's able to go back home and homeschool her daughter, right? This is a fiction example. This is Steve Windsor, and I'll show some more examples later. But you know, making a few $1,000s a month from his fiction work. And this is just a couple examples to show that you know, books, writing and publishing a book really goes beyond the income. I mean, that part's nice. But this is from Kat Wanders. She said, "I just want to say a huge thank you for this whole amazing group. My dad got to see his daughter become a bestseller before he died, which was his last wish. And thanks to my successful launch, my business has boomed an extra $30,000 this month. I cannot thank you enough. I know I keep repeating this, but I'm still processing the whole thing," right? And the last example I'll give here, this is Susie Stanley. She said, "I cannot stress how amazing it feels to publish a book. I have a lady who has recently read my book. I've known her for some time and her situation was dire. She was on a hefty antidepressant dose and was placed on suicide watch earlier this year. She messaged me last week to say that she's been taken off suicide watch. She attributes the change to following the steps in my book," right? Pretty unbelievable feeling. I just want to kind of paint this picture for you. So how many of you guys have been through a tough time, right? We all have, whether it's depression, whether it's a battle with weight, whether it's a death in the family, whether it's, whether it's a breakup, you know, any of those things, right? So Susie used that experience to help other people. And I really think that this is why I'm so passionate about this topic, is because that's what every one of us can do. We can use our personal life experiences to not only make some money, that's good, but also help other people. Right. So my question for you guys is, you kind of see the power of a book, not only for your income, but also for your personal fulfillment. I'd love to hear just a yes in the chat box, or just, you know, why you want to write a book. That'd be awesome. Yes, yes. Daniel says life happens, real experience. Yeah, absolutely. So my promise on this webinar today is, if you stay to the end, I'm going to walk you through how to write a book in 90 days and then how to launch that book to $10,000. Okay. I'm really breaking this webinar. Love it. Jay says, yes, make a difference. I just saw Lauren says, yes, excited. Awesome. So I'm going to break this into 3 parts. These are 3 secrets that I've learned the hard way from not only writing and publishing 6 books, but from teaching thousands of people this process, okay? I'm going to kind of begin with the end in mind. The famous Stephen Covey quote, one of my favorite principles from Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. So we're going to start with the launch and walk through steps on how you can successfully launch the book. Then secondly, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning and say, okay, if you don't have an idea, how do you find an idea that will be income generating? Or secondly, if you have a bunch of ideas, how do you narrow them down? And then thirdly, and in the last part of this presentation, I want to walk you through how to write your book in a weekend without writing a single word. It's a bold promise, but I'm going to walk you through that. And there's really two different paths that you can take here. Okay, and then at the very end, I'm going to walk you through some info on my premium training program called Self-Publishing School. Okay, this presentation will go about to the hour mark, and then we'll have a 30-minute Q&A. Now, there will be no pitch. I'm not trying to sell you anything. In fact, if you want to buy something on this webinar, you can't. I won't take your money, so you don't have to worry about that. This truly is focused on teaching you, and I'm going to share a little bit of info about something that I have going on at the end of this. All right, now let's dive into lesson number 1. So this is the marketing piece, right? This is how to earn $10,000 or more from every book that you write. Now, a couple years ago, or I guess a few years ago now, these are screenshots of both of my bank accounts. Now, as you can see, they're at negative. And now I left off in the story I was telling earlier. My book was making all kinds of money, right? But I did what a lot of entrepreneurs do, and I threw all that money back into the business. And in fact, at this point in my life, I also borrowed $15,000 from friends and family. And all of my bank accounts were negative. So it truly was like, it was the end of the line. I had to make this work. Now I snapped a picture. This was in my apartment that I was about to have to give up because all of my bank accounts were negative. I went to go eat something this day, and I literally only had the 2 end pieces of bread, like the end pieces. Some people like the end pieces. I hate them. And peanut butter. It was like the driest sandwich that I ever had. But I took this picture because I knew at the time, I was like, it's one of those things that's so ridiculous, you just kind of have to laugh. It's like, I am on the verge of having to move back in with my parents, and it's game over, right? I dropped out of school and I failed at that, which in my mind was like the biggest failure that I could ever be is like, I'm not making this work. So at that moment, I decided to do what had worked well for me in the past, and that's launch another book, right? It worked well last time. Why don't I do that again? So that's where I decided to launch my book launch. Within the first 55 days, this book brought in 3,334 leads for my business. Okay. I'll tell you about this later, but a lead is simply someone filling out their name, email, phone number, etc. So kind of like you did for this webinar, that's a lead, right? So that's someone who might do business with you. Right? So this is powerful if you're trying to have a $10,000 book launch, because as you can see, within 55 days, this generated $92,228.50 for my business. This doesn't even count the tons of book royalties and the passive income that I still get now, and also that I got in the first 55 days, right? So if there's any business people, like, this is powerful, as well as obviously the income from that book. Now, this also led to me being featured on the homepage of the Your Money section in Business Insider. This is the article here. It talked about self-publishing school, how I was dropping out of school, all that stuff, right? Now, to recap some of the results, not only did it bring in, a pretty good chunk of change in the first 55 days, this book helped me take my business from $0 to $1.32 million in 11 months. Okay, now this book still brings in leads and still brings in business for me every single month, right? Month after month after month. Now, at this point, the business was doing pretty well, but I walked into a company retreat, and I found out from one of my employees that my business partner at the time was trying to kick me out of my business, right? Was trying to take the business from me. So I'm like, oh my gosh, this is rough, right? Like, we just built a successful business, and it might just all crumble and go away. So what I decided to do, I decided to launch another book, right? That's worked well the last couple of times, so let's do it again. So I launched my book, Published. This is my most recent book, and of all the books that I've done, this is the one I'm most proud of, and I highly recommend, right? So I launched this book, and within 7 months, it helped me pay off 6 figures in debt, because it was a multiple 6-figure buyout for my business partner. And it also helped bring in $1.5 million over the span of 7 months. for my business. So totally turn things around once again. Now, I tell you this story to say that a book is my cash printing machine, right? It's kind of like my get out of jail free card. Anytime I need to generate revenue or generate business, I launch a book. And I would argue that, you know, if it works for me, and it has worked multiple times, that's why I think this is a good model for you to follow as well. So I'm going to kind of break down what I've deemed to be 3 steps that you can take to have a successful book launch. These are the 3 steps I've taken for my books, and you can replicate this as well. Number 2 is especially like, if you just follow that, you'll be successful. So I'm going to break that down in just one second. So number 1, and this is one of the most important pieces, is get a good cover that grabs attention. Okay? This is so important. And I'm amazed at how many people will spend years writing a book, but they'll spend 5 minutes and $5 on a cover, right? This is the first impression that you have. And you've probably heard the saying, don't judge a book by its cover, right? Don't judge a book by its cover, but we all judge a book by its cover, right? So it's very important that you not only get a book cover that grabs attention, but it needs to look good. And I just saw Lauren said, I started this book yesterday and it came to me as a gift. It's exactly what I needed right now. Unbelievable. Awesome. Great, Lauren. Glad you're enjoying the book. So let me give you a couple examples here. I'm going to back up. So published. There's a couple key principles here, right? The book cover needs to be clean, not busy. It needs to grab attention. So imagine this is a very tiny thumbnail on Amazon, right? If I were to shrink this all the way down to a thumbnail, imagine that. It's going to be pretty small. So I need to be able to see that book. So if I'm scrolling through Amazon, this needs to jump out at me. Okay. So here's, you know, one of the most important things that I think you do with your cover is the title needs to be big and it needs to be easy to read and on the upper third, right? I also prefer to have my name bigger for brand recognition. And then there's a clear subtitle. You notice how the colors look good. This pops, it's clean, right? I'll give you one more example, going back to this book launch example. This is the cover of my book launch, right? Now, this is sold really well. I want to say this has like 750 plus reviews on Amazon. The orange cover really pops. There's not many books in the Amazon store that are orange. So that pops. You see book launch. What do you think the book's about? Launching your book, right? Excuse me. And you instantly get it. The image is crisp and clean. It's clear, right? So I'll just kind of fast forward here. So step number 1, get a good cover. Now, step number 2 is to build a launch team, which I'm going to break this down in just one sec. And then step number 3, which is a little bit more advanced, but is to get ongoing reviews to keep the Amazon algorithm happy. So not only is it important that you have a good launch coming out of the gate and that you get as many reviews as possible up front, it's also important that you get as many reviews ongoing because the reviews is kind of like the social proof, right? Think about Yelp or any of these tools that we use to do business. Social proof is one of the key and fundamental kind of pieces of marketing psychology where if other people are doing a thing, you're more likely to do that thing, right? If other people have deemed a restaurant as good, you're more likely to go to that restaurant. If other people have deemed a book as good, you're more likely to read that book, right? It makes sense, I'm sure, because we all do that. You look at a book, and what's almost the first thing that most of you probably look at? It's the reviews, right? So you need to make sure that you have reviews. And I'm going to break down, I'm going to kind of go two birds, one stone, and hit number 2 and number 3 in my explanation of a launch team. Okay, so a launch team is simply a small group of people supporting your book. Okay, now this could be 5 people, this could be 15 people, this could be 50 people, right? But in really the demographics who this could be, let's see, it could be friends, family, it could be colleagues, coworkers, the mom at your son's t-ball practice. This could be somebody from your church, other organizations that you're a part of, right? It could be anyone that supports you or anyone that supports the topic that you're writing your book about, okay? Now, there's 2 sides of the equation. There's what they agree to do as being a part of your launch team, and then there's what they get in return. Now, what they agree to do is read your book ahead of time and leave a review on day 1, so when it launches. And then also just to share the book with friends and support the launch however they can, right? But the most important thing is that they leave a review on day one. And then this is like, so imagine this is like an army of soldiers going out to the world fighting for your book, right? It really is a rally behind your book. Okay, so that's what they agree to do. And then what they get in return is they get a free digital copy. They get their name in the book. This is my favorite thing to do, is to put their name in the book. People love this because most people have never had their name in a book, right? They get to be a part of something that's inspiring, and they really get the personal satisfaction of helping create something meaningful, right? So there's a New York Times study that says that 81% of people want to write a book, but less than 1% of people actually do. So a lot of people want to write a book, but most people don't have the guts to do it. And so by you doing this, you're taking this action that they didn't have the guts to do. So there's kind of this inherent need that says, hey, I want to live vicariously through you, and I want to support your launch through your launch team. Okay, is this kind of tracking? Is this making sense so far? So this is a launch team, and the way that I manage this, I can't get way into the weeds on this because obviously, we only have about an hour here together. So, I mean, I could spend this whole hour talking about launch teams. But the way that I like to manage this, so I'll ask people to apply. That's the way I do it. Some people don't do an application. I'm a big fan of quality over quantity. So it's not about how many people you have on your launch team. It's about how engaged are they and how willing are they to help. So this is how I manage the launch team. So I just create a simple Facebook group. This is what I did. This is kind of old, but you can see I used this for my book published. This was the launch team there. So I selected about 100 people for that launch team. This would probably be bigger than the launch team that you'll do. You don't need to have 100 people. And then I managed it through a Facebook group, right? So I would do a video, like there's a video here, and I would just, send them a doc with information or whatever I needed to do, right? You don't have to do a Facebook group. I know not everyone likes Facebook and not everyone's on Facebook. You can also do this via email, but I just want to kind of plant some ideas for you to kind of show you how this could work for you, okay? Now, what happens when you follow these steps? I want to give you a couple examples. This is David McKay. He emailed me the other day, and he said, Chandler, it's been exactly 1 year since I joined your program and launched a book. He said, my book, so he ended up doing, I think, 2 or 3 books inside of that year. He said, my books have brought in over $10,000 in revenue. So there's your $10,000 launch, right? Secondly, I've brought in $45,655 for my business directly from my book. So he said, this is just what I could attribute the revenue to my book, which he runs a photography business. And then lastly, he said, my book still brings in 30 to 40 leads per week for my business. Now, a lot of people, if you run a business, you know that you have to pay for leads. David's getting paid to get leads, right? Pretty awesome. And this means that he's going to continue to get business and continue to grow his business through his book. Any freelancers in the house? This is Lise Cartwright. She said, I was trading my hours for dollars as a freelancer and spending 6 months. I spent 6 months trying to figure out this whole book thing. I wrote and published my book. She started making $3,000 to $4,000 a month in passive income. This is one of my favorite examples on the business side. This is Dave Rogan Moser. He wrote and published his book, Beyond the Grind. This book brought in $3,864 in royalties in the first 60 days. And then he was able to use that book email list, so the email list that he built from that book, to launch a course. That course brought in over $400,000 in the first 8 months, and then over $1 million in sales within 18 months. And now he started a software company, right? So again, think that key to Narnia, right? Key that opens the door to Narnia. This is a whole world that Dave didn't even know existed, but now he's like running a software company, right? It all started with just doing a book. A couple final examples here. This is from Emily Rose. She wrote and published a book called Break Your Bad Love Habits. And she messaged me the other day and said, I'm making about $10,000 a month from my coaching business and only have to work 6 hours a week with my clients, right? Pretty incredible. And then one last example, this is on the fiction side. So a lot of people are always asking, like, does this work for fiction? This is a great example. This is Kathy Pieper. And she had over a $10,000 romance novel launch, right? The 7th season. This is her romance novel that launched. So pretty incredible. All right, the truth here is you don't need to be tech savvy to launch a book. This is a common misconception. You do not need to spend a ton of money on marketing. You do not need a publisher. I'll spare you my rant on this. But then lastly, it is possible to successfully launch your book to $10,000, okay? Like I said at the top of this webinar, you're not going to get rich overnight, okay? But you will get an income boost, and you're already going to get that mailbox money, that passive income that shows up every single month. I don't know, have any of you guys heard of the term mailbox money? So I told you my brother's in the music industry. So I was in a business class one time, and Darius Rucker of Hootie and the Blowfish came in and was talking to us about the business of music. And he used this term called mailbox money. Because back in the day, he said, you know, you'd write a song, and Hootie and the Blowfish would play the song, and then it gets played on radio all around the world, all these things. And I would go out to the mailbox, and money would keep coming in, like royalty checks would just keep showing up, right? Well, now you don't have to go to the mailbox. It just gets auto deposited into your bank. But just imagine that same concept, except with a book, right? You're not only going to make money on the front end, but then years from now, that mailbox money is still showing up month after month after month. And that's the part that I really think is really powerful here. Roland says, I've never considered the idea of a launch team. Awesome. Hope that was helpful. So you guys tracking with me so far? We're moving into lesson number 2. I want to make sure everyone's tracking and taking notes. And I have your full attention because we're going to keep rolling. This train's going to keep going. Okay. John says, I love mailbox money. Me too, John. And it's nice to be still making it off of a book that I did years ago, right? That's the power of this stuff. Lauren says, this is awesome sauce. And then I got a bunch of yeses. Yes, yes, yes. Cool. I said, Daniel, I see your question. I'll get to that in the Q&A at the end here. So I want to do a quick poll. How many of you guys have an idea about what book you would write? So you have a book idea. Type yes in the chat box, okay? And how many of you guys do not have an idea? If you do not have an idea, type no in the chat box, okay? And I see a bunch of you guys on here, and I'm not seeing a bunch of comments. So go ahead and type in there. Elizabeth said, this is a lifesaver. Love it. So I'm seeing yes, 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 yes. All right, now they're flooding in. I have 3 ideas. I have too many ideas. I have the actual book. No, no. 44 ideas. No. Okay, cool. So there's a decent split. This is what I'm going to break down for you is how to find an idea, or really how to get clarity on your idea. Okay, now a lot of people say, or they come to me, which this seems to largely not be the problem with this crowd, but they say, Chandler, I have nothing to write about. And I put this picture of me, this is like years ago, but I just put this to A, make fun of myself, but then also to B, say that, hey, if this guy can write a book at, I don't know, 20, 21 years old, then you can too. You definitely can. So we're going to get into that, how to find your idea and then how to get clarity on your idea. So this is what I call the idea finder. So the idea finder. So these are 5 questions to help you find an idea. And then ultimately you can narrow down on it from there. So number 1, what are you most passionate about? What's your favorite hobby? So what's something that you enjoy doing or you know a lot about? What do you get paid for, or what's your expertise? This is probably my favorite. So any knowledge workers in the house, right? So if you're a knowledge worker, that means that you get paid for the knowledge that's in your head. So you could be a trade worker, you could be an accountant, you could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, you could be, a consultant, anything, or teacher, professor, anything where you get paid for your knowledge, right? So what happens here is when you're a knowledge worker, whether you've been in your profession for 2 years or 20 years or longer or shorter, you have experience that, let's pretend for a second that I came into your field and I was to start today and I've never been in it before, right? You would have, this is what exists called the gap, right? There's going to be this gap in knowledge between where I'm at and what you know. And in that gap is tons of experience, stories, and expertise that you can use and that you can package into a book. Okay, so this is one of my favorite places to go because this also usually lines up professionally and income-wise. Number 4, what are people coming to you for advice on? So maybe you're known and you're with your friends and family for this thing. And then lastly, what's a topic that you know a lot about or that you can't stop talking about? Okay, Now, this is just to get ideas flowing. If you're trying to narrow down, I should have included a slide with this, but I have a 3-step process to narrow down the ideas. Number one, which one is my fastest way to the finish line? Okay, so which one can I finish the fastest? Which book can I finish the fastest? Question number 2 that I ask is, which one am I most likely to finish, right? So maybe I'm passionate about this topic and I can take this thing to the finish line. And then question number 3 is, which one of these books ideas is going to make me happy, right? Which am I going to be personally fulfilled on? And I'm going to enjoy writing this book. And I ask those questions in that order. And that helps me narrow down on the book that I write first. Because inside Self-Publishing School, we only have 2 rules. Number 1 is that you cannot write more than 1 book at one time. You cannot. It's not smart, and you're just setting yourself up for failure, right? So you have to choose one idea. You have to choose 1 book to write first. And then secondly, we say that you can't edit while you write, because we all know someone who has 5 perfectly written chapters in their unfinished book, right? But they're paralyzed by fear and editing, so they never actually finish their rough draft. Okay, so I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but to come back and repeat those 3 questions. So number 1, which one am I most likely to finish? Sorry. I messed you up there. Number 1, which one can I finish the fastest? So maybe you have a ton of content, it'd be easy to write, etc. Number 2, which one am I most likely to finish? So I'll not only get started, but I'll take it to the finish line. And number 3, which one is going to make me happy? Right? Okay. I hope that makes sense. I should have put a slide in here, but I just thought of that. So, all right, I want to give you a couple ideas here, just to kind of spark your creativity. This is an example from Kat Wonders. She had a hobby of yoga, something that she enjoyed, and she was able to write a book about this and then grow her business pretty substantially, grow it by $30,000 the month. I think this was like a month or 2 after she launched her book. This is on the fiction side of things. Ashley Emma wrote a book called Undercover Amish. So she took her personal experience, turned that into a fiction book. This book is crushing it. She just got approached by agents. And I mean, she has over 200 reviews on Amazon. It's doing really well. This is an example of knowledge worker, right? This is Wendy Vandepol. So someone who is a knowledge worker, who is a vet, and she works with people dealing with pet loss grief. So she wrote a whole series. I think she has like 7 books now on all these different types of pet loss grief, and they're doing really well. This is if you speak English sorry, I'm getting distracted by all these comments. This is if you speak English as a second language. So you can write your book in any language. This is obviously a Spanish cookbook, or if you're writing in English, right, you could do a cookbook. Right, so there's an idea there. And then a lot of people say, Chandler, I just want to write my life experience in a memoir. This is for my kids. This is for my family. Or, yeah, I'll sell this, but really this is just a legacy piece, right? This is a great example. Lisa Fleetwood, she wrote a book, Destination Dachshund. And I always mess up that pronunciation. But this is a travel memoir, right? She's from Australia. It's about how she traveled the States with some of her dogs, and kind of like this memoir around that, right? Okay, so hopefully this has jogged some of your memory here, or just kind of sparked some creativity for folks. Now, the truth here is there's no such thing as a crazy idea. I've seen all kinds of crazy books written, and sometimes the craziest, most out there, they do the best. There are no new ideas. So a lot of people come to me and they say, Chandler, my book's already been written. Like someone's already written a book that's on the topic that I'm writing about. And what I say to this is, everyone has unique experience and stories that you'll relate to potential readers in a way that, hey, they might not relate to Tony Robbins, right? They might not relate to some bigwig. They might not relate to me, right? They might say, Chandler, he's young, or he has a Southern accent, or like whatever. I don't like that guy, but they would relate to you. And so you could be saying similar things, but they're going to relate to you. They're going to relate to your story. They're going to relate to your experience. So there's no such thing as new ideas. And then the last thing, this is very important, because a lot of people, they sit on their book and they die with their book inside them because of this very thing right here. And that's that they think that you need to be an expert to write a book. And I have to say that couldn't be further from the truth. Now, have any of you heard of the saying, I don't know if this is a Southern thing or if this is you know, if this is widespread, but there's a saying, I learned this in Scouts growing up, that it's just kind of a joke. But if you're getting chased by a bear, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than your friend, right? Now, I want you to see this picture, right? So these poor guys are getting chased by an elephant. Well, I don't know how fast this elephant can really go. But this guy out front, he doesn't have to be faster than this elephant. He has to be faster than his friend, right? Now, you may be thinking, what the heck, Chandler? Like, why are you talking about elephants and bears and all this stuff? Well, the lesson here is you don't have to be an expert. You just have to know a little bit more than the person that you're teaching. I'll repeat that again. You don't have to be an expert in your subject. You just have to know a little bit more than the person that you're teaching. Okay? I hope that makes sense. All right, let's move into lesson number 3. We're in the home stretch here. You guys tracking with me? You getting this? Everybody taking notes? You learned something yet? All right. Take a swig of water and let's keep rolling. We're in the home stretch. Stay with me, folks. All right, let's get into lesson number 3. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is how to write your book in a weekend without writing a single word. Okay, this is really my process for fast tracking the writing process. Okay, I want to just start by saying this, and that's that English teachers hated me growing up. I told you I'm a C-level English student and a college dropout. Not only did English teachers hate me, but I hated writing. It was a very miserable experience for me. I wasn't good at it, and it wasn't fun. So as you can imagine, I was very intimidated, probably much like you are, with the concept of writing my first book. It was just very intimidating for me. I know we probably have some people in the crowd who are writers, and you love that. And that's what you live for, right? And there are others in the crowd who you want a book, but you probably don't like the writing part. I fell in that latter category. I've grown to love writing, but in the beginning it was really hard and I wasn't good at it. So I did what you guys are kind of doing right now and what I recommend doing, which is I went to a mentor, right? Someone who's been where I want to go. And I asked him, his name's Adam Carroll. I said, Adam, you've written a book before. Teach me how to do it. Like, show me the process. And he introduced me to this process, or the first step in the process that I teach. It's called mind mapping, right? You've probably heard it before. This is probably not a new concept, but I'm going to show you how you can use this to get your book done quickly. Okay. Now, this is the exact process that I used to write my first book in a week. And I wrote that book with my brother. So a mind map is simply a brain dump, right? It's everything that you can think of on your topic. Everything that you can think of, right? So this is an example. The person wants to write a book about starting a side business, and then they branched out, and these are all the ideas. These are the subcategories, and then they go into all these different ways to start a side business, right? So I'm going to walk you through the process of creating a mind map. This is very simple, very easy. And this is funny. I'm getting some. Timothy says, I love writing, all caps, exclamation point. And then followed by Roland, who says, I'm a lazy writer. So we got both ends of the spectrum there, right? So I'm going to break this down. So step number 1, as you just saw, write the book topic in the middle of the page, right? These are the prompting questions that I told you earlier. It could be a passion, hobby, occupation, or the thing that people just told you, hey, you should write a book about that. Then you're going to branch out. You're going to do the brain dump portion. You're going to write out everything that you know on that topic. So these are all the stories that you have. These are all the lessons that you've learned, examples that you have, books that you read, things like that, etc. And then what you're going to do, you're going to take 15 to 30 minutes to do this. And I promise you, people, a lot of times my students, they'll come to me and they'll say, Chandler, I have an idea that I could maybe write 5 pages about. But I definitely could not write a whole book on this, right? Maybe you can relate to that. And then they go through this process, and 30 minutes later, they come back and they say, Chandler, I've got 2 or 3 books that I can write. I just have to figure out which book to write first. Much better problem to have, right? So you're going to spend 15 to 30 minutes on step 2. Then you're going to take the common themes that appear in your mind map, and you're going to organize those themes into groups or sections, right? These are groups of ideas. And this is going to be 4 to 7 sections. Now, these sections, you're going to order them in the order that you want to cover in your book. And then that's going to lead us to step number 4. And you're going to use those sections to form your outline. Okay, so you're going to go inside of those sections, say you have 4 of them, and you're going to list out the chapters. And this is going to form your chapter by chapter outline for your book. Okay, so these are the 4 steps. I recommend taking a picture of this slide so that you can use this, right? This is a very easy process to follow. Now, a lot of people say, hey, Chandler, does this work for fiction? Of course, it's just slightly different, right? So for fiction, you're going to do a similar mind mapping concept, but instead, obviously it's not going to be so much like examples, lessons learned, etc. But it'd be, okay, what's your hero's journey look like? What are the key pieces of conflict in your story? Who are the main characters? What's the character development that's going to happen? What's the scene and setting? What's the climax, right? You're going to build those key principles into this mind map so that you're laying out an outline that you can use for the actual book. Now, the good news here is that once you do this, writing the book's the easy part, right? So step 1, you mind map. Step 2, you outline the book. And then step 3, you write or speak the book. Now, this is where it gets fun because this is for people who don't like writing, which I'll show you this process in just one second. But the way that you're going to do this, I mean, you've already done the outline. The book practically writes itself, right? So the way you're going to do this, you're going to go chapter by chapter. You're going to spend 10 minutes mind mapping that chapter, 10 minutes turning that mind map into an outline, and then you're going to spend 45 minutes to an hour writing the chapter, right? This is the exact process I used, like I said, to write my first book in a week. We repeated this chapter by chapter by chapter, got it done in a week. But then this is where you can kind of do the choose your own adventure, which is you can speak it. And if you do the same thing, right? You spend 10 minutes mind mapping the chapter, 10 minutes turning that mind map into an outline, and then we'll say 10 minutes, maybe 15, speaking the chapter, okay? This is a very simple process to follow, and I'm going to walk you through this. So if you choose a speaker book, right, maybe you're a better speaker than you are a writer. That certainly is me. Probably still. I'm still probably a better speaker than I am a writer. So this is an easy process that you can follow. This is how to speak your book in 3 steps. So step number 1, you're going to follow your outline, and you're going to simply speak the book, right? Record it. Whatever device you're listening to or watching this webinar on right now, almost definitely has a microphone that you can use. You're going to record that there. Then step number 2, you're going to get it transcribed. So you get someone to turn that audio into text. There's two ways you can do this. You can use like the free dictation services. So you could speak this into Google Docs. You could speak this into, you could use Dragon Dictation, any of those services. Or the other option is you could get someone to do it for you. I love Rev.com or the Rev app. I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I just love their service. And you can use, like I said, the Rev app or Rev.com. And this is a human being. Now, I don't know if you've ever had the experience of speaking to Siri and like she doesn't understand you. Maybe our international folks can relate to that. Me, as someone with a Southern accent, Siri doesn't always understand me. So what I love is that an actual human being will transcribe it. Now, it does cost $1 per minute of audio. So if you're on a budget, it might not be the best bet. But it is relatively cheap for what you're getting. And then I think they advertise a 12-hour turnaround time or 24-hour turnaround time. It's pretty incredible. So you get it back pretty fast. And it seems to be formatted pretty well in a way that you can use that and transition into step 3, which is to polish it off, right? So at this phase, you can either hire an editor to do this for you. A good editor is worth their weight in gold, or you can do this yourself. But now instead of staring at that dreaded blank Word doc, you have words on a page that you can use to get your book finished. Okay. The question a lot of people ask is how fast can you have a rough draft done? Excuse me. Well, the ideal length of a book is 40 to 75 Word doc pages. That's about 15,000 to 25,000, even up to 35,000 words. The average person speaks about 150 words a minute. So that means that you can easily speak your book in a few hours, right? You can definitely get it done in a weekend. So a couple examples here. This is Pat Flynn. If you've ever heard of the Smart Passive Income podcast, I actually just had him on the Self-Publishing School podcast here recently. But he said, I've been able to flow much better with my voice than I am with my keyboard. I have thousands of words that are coming out through each of these sessions through dictation. So he learned about this process and used it for his most recent book. And this is Ray Edwards. He says, I believe we're in an age where it's so easy to dictate and to get that turned into type that I don't know why anyone would do it any other way. When I first heard about this method, I wrote 2 books in one weekend. right? Isn't that crazy? 2 books in one weekend, not just 1 book in one weekend, 2 books in one weekend. I'm sure you can kind of imagine how incredible that would feel. So this is Hannah Latonic, one last example here. She said, originally I despised mind maps. I now love mind mapping. I can see my book come to life without writing a single word. I went from 0 to 13,000 words in 2 weeks just from mind mapping and outlining. So the truth here is you do have the time to write a book. It can be done in as little as a weekend, or this is the second path here. You can spend 30 minutes a day chipping away at it, right? So some people want to double down and say, I'm devoting a weekend, I'm going to get this thing done. Some people say, hey, I want to chip away at it for 90 days, spending 30 minutes a day. Either way, you can be successful. And then the last thing is that you do not have to be a natural writer or even the next Hemingway, right, to write a good book. And the emphasis is good quality book, because although I am advocating for doing it quickly, I'm also advocating for making sure that it's very high quality. So don't rush it and just make your book crappy, right? Make sure that it's a good book. And I'm seeing a couple examples here. Let's see. Christy says, I speak directly into my iPad whenever I get stuck while writing. It works well. Roland says, I'm definitely going to mind map and speak my book. And I think somebody else said, Dragon dictation can transcribe it. Yes, awesome. Okay, so far on this presentation, I've walked you through 3 secrets. Secret number 1 is how to earn $10,000 or more from every book that you write. So we walk through the marketing piece. Secret number 2 is how to find your idea. So we walk through the idea finder. And then secret number 3 is how to write your book in a weekend without writing a single word. Now, I imagine this presentation's maybe felt like this, right? I don't know if anyone if anyone can relate. I kind of opened up the fire hose, right? And just flooded a bunch of information in the last 40-something minutes that we've been here together. Now, I imagine a lot of you are excited about what we just talked about, right? But maybe you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed or like this was a lot of information. So obviously, I try to teach as much as I can in the 40, 50 minutes or so that we've been here together. But I can't teach everything in an hour that it takes to write and publish a book successfully. So what I've done is I've put together a special program. It's something brand new that we've never done before to help you write and publish your book faster. So my question for you is, can I have your permission to show that to you? Now, again, I'm not going to take your money on this webinar, even if you try to give me it. And this is not a pitch, anything like that. But I do just want to be able to share what we've put together here. That is the most high touch and helpful thing that I think we've put together inside Self-Publishing School. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. And a bunch of other stuff that I can't read because the chat's flying in so quickly. So we've put together what I'm calling Self-Publishing School VIP. So this is the only tested, proven 90-day online education program that guides you step by step from blank page to bestseller in 90 days. It's going to save you tons of time, tons of money and frustration, and help you leverage your book for more success, more income, and more freedom. It's everything you need to know to publish your book. Okay, so we walk you from blank page to published author in 90 days. We have an online membership portal. We have video trainings, PDFs, outlines, templates, you name it, throughout the entire process. But the key component that we're adding here that I'm really excited about is personal coaching and accountability. So this is the most high touch kind of concierge type service that we offer to take you from blank page to bestseller in 90 days. So a lot of people, they don't want to just buy an online course, right? You want something that's helpful, and you're going to have someone who has your hand along the way. So that's what we've put together. There's a high level of touch and accountability with your coach. So you get assigned a coach, and you're going to have one-on-one calls with your personal coach that's going to be assigned based on your personal needs. Now, this is just a glimpse inside the membership portal. We're always updating this and improving it. Again, we walk you through every phase of the process. Here you can see that. Now, I know this system gets results because I've used it to write 6 best-selling books of my own. I've used it to build a multi-7-figure business, and I've used it to help thousands of people with their books, all in just a couple years. You don't have to take my word for it. This is David McKay. He wrote and published 2 books in 89 days. I showed you his example. His case study earlier has been very profitable for him. Ashley Emma, a fiction author. She said, just got my first royalty payment. I'm crying. I'm so happy. Earlier today, my bank account was in the negative. Not anymore. No more peanut butter sandwiches. This is so worth it. I already got my ROI, so return on investment on my course and then some. Emily Rose says, this was the only program that really took me from A to Z. She said, out of all the substantial investments I made in online business trainings and courses, this was the only program that took me from A to Z. You delivered what you aimed to. Thank you for reviving my faith in online business programs. So who does this work for? Who is this a fit for? It's a fit for fiction and nonfiction authors. It's a fit for regular people just looking to add a source of passive income, right? Or that mailbox money that we talked about. It's a fit for someone who wants to use a book to grow a bigger business, for people who want to share their life experience, or lastly, for people who just want to write a book off their bucket list. Now, the biggest concern that I get from folks is they say, Chandler, this sounds awesome, but the timing just isn't right now. Like I'm convinced I need to do a book. This is the best thing for me, for my family, and for my future, but the timing just isn't right. Well, I'll leave this to the legendary Zig Ziglar. He says, if you wait for all the lights to turn green before leaving home, you'll never get started on your way to the top, right? So the fact of the matter is there's never going to be perfect timing. There's never going to be a time where you don't have the kids, or you don't have a job, or you don't have any responsibilities, and like there's this magic yellow brick road that you can skip down to being an author, right? You're going to have to leap before you're ready, and you're going to have to get started before the timing feels like it's right. So the next step in how this will work for this program is I'm going to be opening up applications, okay? So because of the high-touch nature of this program, we have a very limited number of people that we can accept. And we only want to work with people who are serious and who are going to take action, right? This definitely is not for everyone. Like I said, it's not a course. It's more of a guided journey. So seats are very limited. This will sell out quickly. I mean, last time we sold something like this, was just a couple weeks ago. So it's a different program, but it sold out in less than 72 hours, right? So this will sell out quickly. Like I said, the way this works, you must apply and you must be accepted to be able to participate. So this is a two-step process. There's a written application that I'm going to drop the link for in just a minute or so. And then if you pass that, then you're going to move to the second step of the application process, which is a verbal application. This is where you talk with someone on my team, and they're going to talk and make sure that you're a fit. And if you are a fit, they'll give you all the details about the program and all that stuff, and you can get into the program. Now, the deadline to apply is in the next 3 days, and that includes today. So we will be moving pretty quickly here. So if you are interested and if you want to apply, you need to apply ASAP, right, as soon as possible. So the reason why is because the way that we do this, because these spots are limited, is the first applications, they get the first chance at the slots that are available. This isn't false scarcity, guys. We literally just did this. I think people think that I'm just making this up. But we literally just did this, and like the people who applied, I want to say it was after 24 hours, like they just didn't get a shot because it sold out before we even were able to get to their applications, right? So if this is something that you're interested in, all you have to do is apply. So basically, like I said, how this works, you can either click the orange Apply Now button. So this should have just this should have just popped up in the chat box. So you should see an orange button that says Apply Now. Or you can type this in your browser, open a new tab, and go to self-publishingschool.com/apply. Okay, that's going to take you to an application. Take a couple minutes to fill that out. And then basically what will happen next is if you pass the first phase of the application, you'll hear from someone on my team, and we can talk about the second phase of the application. Okay, so I want you to go and head on over there right now. So either click the orange Apply Now button, or go to self-publishingschool.com/apply, fill out the application. And then once you do that, come back in here in the chat box and just let me know that you applied. Okay. And that way I can kind of also make sure that we earmark your application. So just comment in the chat box and let me know once you apply. Like I said, there's going to be limited spots here. We only want people who are going to take this seriously. So if you just want to dabble, please don't apply. But if you're ready to bring your A game and you're serious about this, then definitely fill out an application. So like I said, what happens after you apply? If you pass the first step of the application process, you'll hear from someone on the team within 24 to 48 hours, and that'll move into the next step where they'll set up a call to chat with you further and see if you're a fit. Enrollment for this is going to either end as soon as all of the spots are filled up or in 5 days, whichever comes sooner. And then a couple final things, and then I'm going to open it up for questions for Q&A here. There's a fast action bonus. So if you fill out the application in the next 24 hours and you're accepted and then you enroll within 3 days, I'll personally promote your book to the SPS community, which is about 1,300 or more people that love books and that love supporting each other, right? Like we support our fellow authors, as well as I'll promote it to our Facebook page, which has over 75,000 people on that page. I just looked this morning or yesterday, it grew by 381 people in the last week. So by the time you launch your book, it'll probably be way bigger, right? So this is a fast action bonus for people who apply within the next 24 hours, are accepted and enroll within 3 days. The last thing that I want to mention here, we have at Self Publishing School what I call our Student for Student Promise. So we partner with Pencils of Promise. And this is a way for not only for us to do good as a business, but for you to do good with your purchase. So when you enroll in Self Publishing School, you provide education for a child in need. Pencils of Promise builds schools in third world countries, and we have the 1-for-1 student match, right? So for every student that enrolls in Self Publishing School, we fund the education of a child in a third world country. Now, the last thing I want to say here before we jump into Q&A, this is just kind of me ribbing you and just giving you a hard time and a little bit of a joke. But this is Emma Sumner. She was 8 years old when she wrote and published her book, The Fairies of Waterfall Island. So this was a children's book. This book brought in $4,000 in book sales in 3 months, helped her raise money for autism awareness for charity there. She's since been featured on Fox, CBS, ABC, all these major TV stations. She did a book signing with over 10,000 people there, and her book's being read in her English classes, and she's reading at a sixth grade reading level, right? So if an 8-year-old can do it, then you definitely can do it. This is a picture of me and Emma on Good Morning Sacramento a few weeks back. So pretty cool. There's her book. There's my book. So there you have it. So if you haven't already, go ahead and head on over to self-publishingschool.com/apply, or you can click that orange Apply Now button and head on over there. And like I said, fill out the application and then come back here in the chat box and let me know that you filled out the application, and then we'll move forward with next steps there. Let's go ahead and dive into some questions. Let's see. Daniel says applied. Nelgren says filled out an application. Let's see. I'm marking some of these questions. I'm going to get caught up a little bit here. Jennifer said simple, clear, and encouraging. Thank you. Awesome. Cheryl says, I appreciate your succinct and rapid style. Great. Thank you. Let's see. Dan says, Dragon, naturally speaking, is amazing. You can dictate into your phone, and when you get back to your computer, it will automatically transcribe everything with uncanny accuracy. I've been using it for 15 years. Wow, that's great. That's great to hear, Dan. That's awesome. Let's see. Bailey asked, how do I go about being able to use Bible verses in my book? So I'm not totally sure what the copyright laws are there. I would imagine that you can quote some of those, but you're going to want to look at Amazon Terms of Service. I've seen this in certain books, so I'm pretty sure that it's okay. But as always, I'm not a lawyer, and this is not legal advice, right? So quoting is kind of a weird thing where it's largely acceptable, but there's and it's generally pretty easy to do, but there's just a couple weird rules here and there. Donna says, thank you for all the great info and motivation. I'm signing off to go start my book. Awesome. Let's see. Lori, how much does this cost? Yeah, and it looks like a couple of people have asked this. Yeah, so this is something that this is something that if you're accepted and you move through both phases of the application process, then we can talk about cost. We can talk about all those things, right? But part of the application process is we're not going to accept anyone who, number one, is a fit for the program. You have to be a fit to get accepted. But then also, number two, it has to be a financial fit for the program. So that's kind of included in the application. So we evaluate both of those things. That way we make sure we're only offering this to you if this is something that can truly help you. Okay. So we're only going to accept people who this is the best decision for you. And this is the best decision for us to work together. And we feel like this will be a huge win for you. So that's something that we've kind of built in as part of the application process. Elizabeth said, I missed the numbers on the ideal book link. Could you please repeat that? Yeah, anywhere from 15 to 35,000 words. If you're writing a fiction novel, it might be longer than that. And for some books that are written for business purposes, they can be shorter than that. Like, you know, I talked to some physical therapists the other day, and one of the ladies, she wrote a book that was much shorter, but she said, hey, this is a gift to my patients. So they're not going to read like a 25,000 word book. So I just wrote a short book. That's shorter than 15,000 words, but generally 15 to 35,000 words is the range. Medina says, filled out an application, hope it went through. Thank you. Awesome presentation so far. Easy to follow. Awesome. Thank you. Linford says, great webinar. Thanks. All right. More questions coming in. Yeah, keep the questions coming, guys. I'm going to stay on and answer a few more questions. Mark, who decides the selling price of the book? So you do. You can set the selling price at whatever you want it to be. I recommend for ebooks, you go anywhere from $2.99 to $9.99. That's going to maximize your sales and maximize your royalties. So the percentage of royalties that you earn on those books. And then for print books, I recommend anywhere from like $10.99 on the very low end to $17.99 on the high end. You decide the sales price and figure out you know what works best for you and your purpose. And I walk you through this in the first part of the course as we kind of determine why are you writing this book, what's the financial, and then also the bigger purpose for writing it, and how do we make sure that this makes sense for you, and kind of begin with the end in mind. So if your goal is to grow a business, then we're not going to try to optimize how much money you make off the book, because we're going to use the book to drive leads for your business. If your goal is to make a bunch of money off the book, then we're going to treat that differently, right? So those little caveats in the marketing will make all the difference in making sure that your book is successful. Christy, just applied. Your timing was just great for me. Thanks. Love it. Kieran, how do you compare an iBook compared to Kindle? So they're both ebooks. And they're actually both the same file. And also Kieran says submitted an application. Yeah, so they're both the same type of file. So there's a .mobi and a .epub file. Those platforms both accept ebooks. I recommend starting just on Amazon at first. I forgot to mention this stat earlier in the webinar, but over 70% of all books sold are sold on Amazon, right? So the lion's share of all books sold happen inside Amazon. So I like to focus there and then expand. There's some real good benefits for that because you're kind of like focusing your efforts on that platform. But other than that, the platforms, you know, they obviously have their intricacies, but they largely operate in a similar fashion. Faith, I've already written my book. Is this for me? Absolutely. So I actually hear this question a lot, Faith. People say, hey, I've already written my book, or I've already written multiple books. Will self-publishing school help me? And the course itself will, but then this particular program that we're rolling out as well, with a high touch and you know, your ability to work with a coach, this is even more helpful, right? This is like even more helpful because you're able to get, one of the big things that we do on the very beginning is we do a clarity call. So this is where you get clear not only on what's your purpose for your book, so if you've already written your book, okay, how are you going to market this successfully? How do you set this book up for success? Do you want to go through the title? Do you want to go through the positioning, the marketing, things like that? But obviously, if you haven't written your book, you're going to go through, hey, what is my book idea? Let's crystallize that. Because as you probably know, Faith, there's little, 1% shifts in the beginning of this process make a huge difference on down the road. So that's one of the first parts of this process that we do is you get on with your coach and you do a clarity call. And they really drill deep. And they're good at this from the standpoint of like, hey, we're going to drill deep and make sure that you're clear from the beginning so that then your further calls with that coach, they'll be able to walk you through according to your goals, right? Not just like this templated plan, but let's identify your personal goals and how do we get there the fastest. So one of my favorite examples, Faith, is from one of our students who joined, and she was really hesitant. In fact, we had to convince her to join. Right? It's like, this is going to be a good fit for you, right? She was just like, I don't know. This is a stretch for me financially, all those things, which I'm sure people can relate on this webinar, right? But I convinced her and I said, you got to do this. Like, I can't let you not do this because I just know that this is going to be a good fit for you. And so she said, but well, I've already written and published 30 books. Like, what could you possibly teach me? And I said, I promise this will deliver, right? So she joined the program. She wrote a book. In fact, you saw her mind map earlier in this webinar. And she wrote that book, and that book was more successful than all 30 of her books combined, right? That book has completely changed her life. She's got an exploding business. That book has sold a ton. And she's so happy, right, that she joined and that I convinced her to join when she wasn't quite sure about it, right? So yes, even if you've written multiple books before, this will definitely help you. All right, keep the questions coming. Let's see. What's the best way to write your book description? From Alina. So I have a process that we walk you through for this. There's some fundamental copywriting principles. So when I say copywriting, I mean salesmanship in print. So writing words that sell. And so what's really important here is that you write in a way that's going to sell and intrigue people about your book, right? So in terms of writing a book description, I almost always start with a question or a hook, right? You can go and look on my books on Amazon, whether it's published or book launch or any of those. In fact, I recommend doing that so you just see how I do it. If you're like me, you're a visual learner, so you're going to learn better from seeing how I do it rather than me speaking about how I do it. So what I do there is I'll hook them. Like, have you tried? Have you been thinking about writing a book for years? ? Maybe you've thought about doing it, but you've never had the guts to get started. Or maybe you've started and you stare at that dreaded blank page and you just want to beat your head against the keyboard, right? You don't know where to start. If that's you, so now I'm transitioning. I was exactly in your shoes when I wrote my first book. This is why I wrote this book, and here's how this book will help you. And then I start listening to benefits, right? This book will show you how to get clear on your idea. So it's, similar to how I pitch this webinar, similar to how anything like that. It's all marketing and it's all positioning there. I hope that makes sense. We also have an 8-step intro checklist in the course that kind of walks through not only how to write your intro, but I also how to write your book description. Daniel says, I'm on fire. This is good. I have too many ideas. Need to narrow my scope. Love it, Daniel. We can definitely help you with that. John, I have an illustrated kids book, almost ready to go. Any specific pointers needed for that sort of launch? Or am I good with your awesome advice so far? Yeah, this is definitely something that we could help you with and coach you through. We have a decent amount of kids books being published through the program. And John, one of the biggest tips that I give is like, do not skimp on your cover and do not skimp on the illustrations in the book. Okay. Make sure this book is high quality, especially for children's books. Children's books sell really well. And what my favorite part about children's books is that you can do a series, and guess what? Like, parents need entertainment for their kids. And if their kids like a particular series, they're just going to keep buying the book. So you get repeat customers. So I really like the serialization of children's books, but you need to make sure that the quality is good, right? That's super important. Don't skimp on that portion. Make sure the quality is good so there's a good reader experience. And then for you, a lot of the stuff that I talked about was ebook specific. We teach you how to do all types of books, whether it's ebook, audiobook, and print. But I would imagine for yours, the ebooks will be good, but also the physical copy is going to be pretty good as well. All right, let's see. Dana says, how do you include schematics and visual aids in the book? Specifically, where do you go to come up with stuff that isn't just text for technical books? Great question. So I'm a little bit light on this sort of thing. If you check out my book Published, though, you'll see little illustrations and things like that. For a Kindle book or for an ebook, the less of these things that you have, the better. But you can use charts, graphs, and tables regardless. And then I work with a good formatter that makes sure that the book looks is formatted well. And I see that Kieran has a similar question here, so I'll just go ahead and touch on both of these. My iBook has a lot of visual content to guide the user for using acupressure points. Any helpful hints or tips? Yeah, so similar thing. If you have visual aids, just make sure that you have a good formatter to format the book. And in the program, we have what we call our preferred outsourcers Rolodex. So these are the people that we work with. So the formatters that I've worked with in the past, as well as some of our students work with, they're in there as well. And that piece is really important so that your book looks good and is professionally done, but you don't have to do it. I don't recommend formatting the book yourself. James, I already have 2 full-length novels written. How could I get you to help me market these books? So great question, James. So that's something that, we can definitely help with. And believe it or not, a lot of people are in this position on the fiction side of things because a lot of times fiction authors like the writing, but they don't like the marketing so much. Now, I'm not saying this is you, James, but for a lot of people, this is where they're at, right? They love the creation piece. They don't like the marketing. And that's where I think we can help the most because we're really good at marketing. I mean, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but you don't build like a multi-million-dollar business. Like I think at this point we've done over $6 million in the last 2.5 years or so. Like you don't do that by if you're not good at marketing, right? So if there's one thing that we're really good at is working with people to help them market their books and to sell more books, right? It's just something that I've spent definitely my 10,000 hours on. I've invested tens of thousands of dollars in marketing trainings and courses like this. I mean, all kinds of stuff, events. Like I'm very passionate about that piece. And so that's the area that we can really help. And we really trained our coaches to be good at that. Okay, Mark, how to create an attention-grabbing book title. That's a big question. If you search book titles self-publishing school on Google, we have a really good blog post on this that I think you'll find helpful. And that'll do a much better job of explaining than I can. Because really what you're looking for, like you want it to be specific and you want it to be very benefit focused. So my litmus test for a good title and a good cover is, do I instantly know within 2 seconds what this book's about and will it help me? If not, then you probably didn't do a good enough job on that title and on that cover. So that's my 2-second piece of advice. And then the blog post can help you as well. Let's see. I'm going to answer a couple more questions here. If you haven't already, looks like a bunch of people are applying, so that's awesome. Make sure that you go ahead and apply. Like I mentioned earlier, there's that fast action bonus where I'll promote your book when it launches. If you apply within the next 24 hours, and if you're accepted and you enroll within 3 days. Okay, so that's really important. As soon as we're going to close enrollment either as soon as all the spots sell out, or 5 days from now at the very latest. Okay, so the last time we did something like this, it was for a slightly different course, but it sold out in less than 72 hours. Right, so I'm not making this stuff up. It is important that if you're interested, that you go ahead and apply, so we can see if you're a good fit for the program. And like I mentioned earlier, there's going to be a 2-step application process. Number 1 is the written, which you'll see when you click that button or go to this site, and then number 2 is the verbal. So if you pass the first step, you'll hear from someone on my team within 24 to 48 business hours. And then we'll get on the phone to talk to you further to see if this is a good fit. Okay. And then if it is, we can tell you about the program, what that looks like, and how you can enroll. Okay. So if you haven't already, go ahead and head on over to self publishingschool.com/apply, or just click that orange learn more, that orange apply now button in the chat box. Okay, so go ahead and head on over there, apply, and come back to the chat box and let me know when you filled out the application. All right, I'm going to breeze through some questions. I apologize if I'm not able to get to your question. There's a bunch of questions coming in, and I'm just going to like kind of skim and pick out someone that I think will be most helpful, not only for the people asking them, but also for the group. Joe asking, how many words per page do you estimate, and how long would a 15,000 to 25,000 word book be? So I think what I said earlier on that slide is 40 to 75 Word doc pages. And then the words per page on a Word doc, I want to say is like 250 to 300, but then that's words per page on a Kindle page is like 150. I wouldn't get too wrapped up in that, honestly. Do the mind map, do the outline, write the book as long as it needs to be and not any longer. And don't get so wrapped up in a word count. This is where a lot of people kind of go off course. Faith says, thank you for answering my question. No worries. Let's see. Medina, is Ryan Deiss an affiliate? Do you recommend the Elephant in the Room course first? Thank you. I don't know what that is. So I definitely can't recommend it. But I do know Ryan Deiss. He's a personal friend of mine. And they've sent people our way in the past. He's a great guy. Elizabeth, what comments do you have about mini books? Yeah, I mean, I think they can work. The quality needs to be good. A lot of people telling you to do mini books, they're just saying just pump out crap content, which just doesn't work. I don't believe in that. This is a long-term game, not a short-term game. So if you're trying to get rich overnight, it's just not going to happen. And especially if you're ignoring the quality of the content, the quality of the books that you're putting out. But you can do it well, and I actually believe in it as a concept, especially like novellas on the fiction side or mini books on the nonfiction side. How do you know if your book idea is a selling topic? Karen, great question. So yeah, at the end of the day, you only can give your best guess, which I know is not the answer that you want to hear. But I walk you through in the beginning of the course how to do some research and see what's selling on Amazon and what's not. And we walk through, okay, what's the positioning, as well as obviously on that clarity call that you're going to have with your coach. They'll help you get clear. And hundreds of people, all of our coaches have coached hundreds of people at this point per person. So that, they've seen enough of these to be able to diagnose and say, hey, this is either going to be something that will sell or something that won't. And they can kind of, oftentimes minor tweaks of your idea will be the difference between whether or not it sells or not. John says, awesome. Thanks so much, Chandler. I'm a cartoonist, so we'll be taking extra special care of the illustrations. Love it. You're lucky, man. Not many people have that luxury of being able to do their own illustrations. That's pretty awesome. Also plan on making it a series, so good to know that's a plus. Very exciting. Fantastic. Let's see. I think, Linda, I saw you had a two-part question here, and then I'm going to wrap. So final calls for questions here. We're going to go ahead and wrap up. So I want the coach bit, but I just bought a $1,125 membership in May. Should I apply now? Really only you will know that, Linda. It depends on your goals, and it depends on where you want to go, right? So I obviously believe in this program very strongly. A book changed my life forever. It's the best thing that I ever did, like in my life, is write and publish my first book. It just completely changed the trajectory of my life. And I'm able to live just a really good life now, right? Like I'm really blessed. I travel around the world. I was just with my family in Denver this past weekend, right? Like all these things that I can do. My books make me money while I sleep. My business makes me money while I sleep and while I'm traveling or doing whatever, right? So my income is not tied to trading hours for dollars. And I think that writing and publishing a book is the first step towards that. It's the first step towards financial freedom and just freedom in general, right? So I strongly believe, I strongly believe in a book is a concept. And I think that we can definitely help you. But in terms of whether or not this will be a good fit for you at this time, I'd go ahead and fill out an application so that we can determine that. And then we'll be able to read your application and kind of figure, because like I said earlier, we're not trying to just get your money. Like, we're going to make sure that there's a really good fit for you and a really good fit for us to work together. Because if it's not, it's just going to be a waste of your time. It's going to be a waste of our time, right? So we want to make sure that it's a good fit before we decide whether or not we want to work together. So I would recommend just applying, and then we can get that figured out. Joe says applied. Devorah says just applied. Love it. Peter says, thanks, Chandler, for the clear information. Oh man, that just disappeared on me. There's a bunch of comments coming in here. All right, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap here. I'm sorry if I didn't get all your questions answered. There's just kind of a ton of questions coming in, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time here. I know that I told you we'd be just under an hour and a half, so I want to be respectful of that. So I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that you found this informative. At the very least, I hope that you learned something and you have a bunch of notes, right? I want you to make this book a reality. It's just such a personal passion of mine. It's something I've seen people's lives be changed through our program, and it's just so fulfilling. So I want to see that. I want to see that same for you. And sad reality is, I know that for a lot of people, if forced to do it on their own, it's just, you know, it's a lose game. Like, there's not great information out there. You have to have the motivation, and even then you can do it all wrong. Like, you can totally flop when you're publishing this book. So I want to make sure that you not only do it, but you do it right. Because if you do it right, that's going to be the difference between this thing really changing your life and being a catalyst for you, for the future of yourself, your family, your business, like really just creating an epic life. So that's something I'm really passionate about. I've seen work firsthand for me and for so many of our students. So I just want to be able to provide that for you guys as well. So I hope that you learned something on the webinar. Also, I hope that you apply. And then ultimately, if you're accepted, I can't wait to see you inside the program and be able to work with you to help you finish your book. Okay. So if you haven't already, one final call here. I think we got a little robot. There we go. So if you haven't already, go ahead and head on over to self-publishingschool.com/apply, or just click that orange apply now button and go ahead and fill out the application. Like I said, go ahead and fill out the application in the next 24 hours right now, as soon as we get off this webinar, if possible. That'll qualify you for that fast action bonus if you get accepted and join in the next 3 days, as well as obviously with spots being limited, we're going to close this up pretty soon here. So thank you guys for joining me. I hope that you really enjoyed this. I hope that you learned something, and I hope to see you inside Self-Publishing School. I just saw that Janet applied. Shannon says, good talk, thanks. And I'm seeing a bunch more applications rolling here. So thanks again, guys. Hope to see you inside the program. Talk soon.